All right, campers, welcome back. Your first video for this week is going to be on first declension noun endings. So putting this in context, you learned second declension noun endings, which primarily included masculine and neuter nouns. First declension, think of it this way, we believe in ladies first around here. We still believe in that. At least I do, and in my opinion, it's the one that really counts. And so, first declension endings are primarily feminine nouns. I say primarily because occasionally we have a noun that I know this isn't exactly a nice way to say it, but I say it this way because it helps you remember. Occasionally we have a cross-dressing noun. And a cross-dressing noun is either a masculine noun of the first declension or a feminine noun of the second declension. We could put it another way. A cross-dressing noun is a noun that either looks feminine when it's really masculine or looks masculine when it's really feminine. And we'll see some of those as we go. But for the most part, as I say, first declension is feminine nouns and second declension is masculine and neuter. Let me talk about these endings and then I'll talk about the feminine article and then we'll call it a video. So I don't want to make this more complicated than it is. You have already learned about the functions. Notice that nominative and vocative, you have NV over here, and it kind of looks like a W with an extra thing, but other than NV, that is, let me fix it a little and that'll probably help. Okay, nominative, vocative, because nominative and vocative share a form in this declension. There's no separate form for the vocative. Genitive, ablative, dative, locative, instrumental, and accusative. So you're going to have four. But what is a little bit tricky about the first declension endings is that in the singular, you have three different systems. So S here stands for singular system 1, S here, well, it's singular system throughout. Singular system 1, singular system 2, singular system 3. Now the endings are similar in these systems, but they work a little bit differently. If you look, I didn't write out all the words, of course, on the board, but if you look at page 23 in Ray Summers' textbook in part lesson 5, pages 22 and 23, you can see different words that these endings are applied to, different first declension words, primarily feminine nouns. Okay, and so there is an exception. The word prophetes on page 23, meaning prophet, is one of those what we call cross-dressing nouns, or a masculine noun of the first declension. The word prophet is actually a masculine noun. If you wonder how we know that, the simplest way we know that is it always appears with a masculine article. If it is articular, you remember articular means that it has the article. And if it's articular, it is always governed by a masculine article. That's really how we know that there are masculine nouns of the first declension and feminine nouns of the second declension, because they will appear with the appropriate article when they are articular. Okay, so that's helpful. Just slug down some coffee while I should be sleeping here. I know one of the great joys of your life in watching these videos is watching Professor Vic slurp coffee. All right, so here are these three systems. The first is, I'm just going to say them phonetically as the sounds. Us, on. Now, how do you know the nominative vocative from the dative locative and instrumental? The dative locative and instrumental is always going to have an iota subscript. Go back to chapter 1, and there is such a thing as an iota subscript. That's what it's called. It looks like a little baby iota under the letter. And so you'll notice on each of these that there is an iota subscript under the singular, and that also happens in second declension. So pay attention to the iota subscript. But system 1, us, on. And so if we were to use the word Basileia, which means kingdom, if you look at page 22, it is Basileia, Basileios, Basileia, bosili on. The next system is a, ace, a, on. So these two are the same, nominative, vocative, and then accusative are the same, but the genitive, ablative, and the dative, locative, and instrumentals convert to an eta rather than an alpha. So just remember that conversion, and there's an example of with the word glossa. Glossa is the word for tongue in Greek, so it would be glossa, glossace, glossae, glosson. All right, and finally, the third system is a, ace, a, ain. So it's very similar to the first system and even more similar to the second, but in this one, all of the alphas convert to etas. So it becomes a, ace, a, ain. And if we were to use that, like it uses the word graphe at the bottom of page 22, and then it will also use prophetes on page 23. But using graphe here, graphe means scripture or sometimes writings. It is graphe, graphes, graphe, and graphane. So plug those in, and that will help you decline your first declension nouns, and yeah, it works. Declining them works the same way as declining the masculine nouns or the second declension nouns, only you will say instead of masculine or neuter, you will obviously say feminine. So use an F rather than an M or an N. Hopefully that's not too complicated, and as usual, text or email me if you are feeling like it's a little complicated. All right, this is the plural endings, and the plural endings are I, own, ice, us. And thankfully, the plural ending is the same in each of those systems. So if you look, I, own, ice, us continues. Now, I have a mnemonic device for I, own, ice, us, and I was telling you I had one for the first declension ending, plural ending as well, but you had to learn the second declension first. Pardon me, the second declension ending as well, but you had to learn the first declension first. There's a reason for that. It's a little out of order, but just for kicks and comic relief, I will give you this. This is another karate mnemonic device. Sometimes in karate, we like to break ice. And so imagine that I have a big sheet of ice in front of me, right? And sometimes when we break ice, we make that big noise like, ice. So I've got this big sheet of ice in front of me. You're using your imagination to picture this. Can you picture that? Okay, so got the ice in front of me, and it's my ice, so I own it. So I would say, I own ice. I own ice. And because it's my ice, I can break it, so then I break it. Us! So we have I own ice, us. I own ice, us. All right, now, you may or may not remember that in second declension, the endings, the masculine endings, were fairly similar here. I think I have room to write this over here. Oi, own, ois, oos. So very similar. In fact, this one is exactly the same. How do you know whether it's a masculine or feminine? You have to know whether it's a masculine or feminine noun, and the only way is to memorize that as masculine or feminine at the beginning of the chapter. I'll remind you of something about that in just a minute. But I bring this up because if I own ice, us is my mnemonic device to remember the first declension plural. Imagine somebody saying I own ice, us for second declension, but this person is actually from Minnesota. If you're from Minnesota, I apologize, I'm teasing you. I'm kind of gagging on the way people from Minnesota talk. But so somebody from California would say, I own ice, but somebody from Minnesota would say, I own ois, oos. I own ois, oos is kind of the way, somebody would say it if they were from Minnesota. So, all right. Again, apologies if you're from Minnesota, but we will do almost anything for a mnemonic device. All right, a couple more things, campers. It is very helpful for you to memorize the feminine article. article. Because if you memorize the feminine article, then if you have an articular noun, it's really easy to decline. Because as you'll remember from some of our previous videos, when a noun is articular, the article and the noun will share the same gender, number, and case. Or case, gender, and number, if you want to put it that way. So, look at the articles on page 21, and let me show you. And there is only one system for the article. In other words, there's not 3 sets for the articles, there's only one. So I'm going to borrow my endings for my third system in singular and for my plural, and watch how you remember what these articles are. It's pretty simple. We just got to do some quick little conversions. The ending A, if we put a rough breathing on that, it becomes hey. Hey, how you doing? Hey, right? So hey is the article in the feminine. And then the nominative or vocative article, I should say, although there's not really a vocative article. So the nominative article. The genitive and ablative article, we put a tau in front and a circumflex right there, and that has just become a genitive ablative article. So taste. And then we do the same thing here. Tay, and we also we put a circumflex here as well. And tain, and we're going to put an acute. So our ace, ain has become hey, taste, tay, tain, and we now have the feminine singular article. Yeah! All right, and now comes the part where we'll do something similar with the plural endings. You see, I, own, ice, us. If we want to convert that system into feminine articles, again, we're going to use a rough breathing, and because this is a diphthong, the rough breathing goes under the iota. So I has become hi. Hi. How you doing? Okay. Hi. Then we put a tau as well as a circumflex over yon, and it becomes tone. We put a tau over here, and let's see, just checking myself, a circumflex over the iota, and then we put a tau here, and if memory serves, and it does, and acute over the alpha, and our I, own, ice, os has become high. Tone, tais, tas. So a lot of times in Greek, one of the things we're going to do in some of these videos is I'm going to let you know about some connections that will be incredibly helpful in you memorizing these things. Once again, friends, remember that when you decline the nouns, you are just going to decline them the way you decline nouns. Same with the article. So for instance, if we wanted to decline tais over here, we would call that a dative feminine plural article. And we could do that with all of them if we wanted to, but you get the idea. If we were going to take, let's just take one of our words here, just for a grand, just for extra. So for example, very bottom of page 22, the bottom corner, we have graphos. Sorry, there is some glare, but I think you see that says graphos. We better put that acute here. And so if we wanted to decline graphos, and I'm going to do it below just for the purposes of this, we have it is accusative. Feminine. Yeah, the Bible is a girl in the sense that scripture or graphe is a feminine term. Plural. Noun of graphe. which means scripture. Or if you wanted to be more general, you could say it means writing. Same thing. All right. Well, my friends, that gives you a basic introduction to the first declension. Again, a lot of times some of these videos don't have to go into quite as much detail because we're assuming some of the knowledge we already have. If you need to know more about how Greek nouns work, go back and watch the previous videos. Wild times, fast cars. See you later.